Hey everyone, I would like you to meet Signum 3. Signum 3 is the latest design of the Signum series, following Signum 1 and 2. Surprise! And it's made to be a minimalist, adjustable, ergonomic keyboard. Obviously it follows, it's a 40% keyboard. There's very few keys and depends on layering, but there's a lot of design elements that went into this to make it what it is today. So I hope to kind of bring you along on that journey. So let's go back. We have to go back. This is kind of where it all started. The minimalist board, the fake plank. This is just a standard 40% keyboard, but it really introduced me to the idea of using layering, holding down a key and at changing what these keys do, hitting a number pad here, really building up speed on these smaller boards and beginning to really take advantage of the features that they have. But for all its benefits, and the benefits were primarily just the ease of portability, very easy to carry around, very lightweight, and very handy, very quick and handy. I definitely did everything faster with it. But I still had wrist problems because I was bending my wrists a lot like this to get in on this smaller board, which is pretty much the same as it was with any other keyboard because your hands just have to be closer together. So I wanted something that was a little bit more flexible, and I thought a little bit more travel-able. So I wanted something that was a little different. And after a lot of different designs, I came up with the Plico. The Plico is the folding keyboard with a locking hinge so that it holds that position. It had a few other features. It's still a straight 40%. Since it locked in different positions, I was able to keep my wrist straight as I came in and typed on it. It also had some other features. It had backlighting because that's just fun, and a USB hub. And I threw that in there mostly because it was I had a Microsoft Surface at the time, and it had one USB port on it, and I just kind of needed it. This worked out really well for a really long time. The build was a bit tall, but that's only because it had the USB hub, and I was still kind of getting a feel for how these builds work out and how to save space. I would have preferred it to be lower, but I like it for what it is. I still use it today, and it works great. But where I kind of started deviating was where it just didn't really... it felt kind of insecure because it would kind of flop around, and I felt like I wasn't really... It would transport like this, but I wasn't sure that I was really saving much space like this. I wasn't really sure I was getting a full benefit out of it. So I decided to switch it up a little bit. And you'll also notice I went with a permanently attached cable, and that's just kind of a convenience thing. I wanted it to have everything in one package, everything put together. So, following that everything in one package design, I came up with this, which is the Signum 2. The Signum 1 was sold to some lucky purchaser who really enjoys it, at least as far as I heard. And it follows this angle, this split angle in a single piece design. So the split angle was something that I thought wasn't as good over the Plico because the Plico was fully adjustable. But I began to notice that I was only adjusting the Plico to one position, and it was pretty much staying there. So I finally just pulled out a protractor and measured it and said, all right, that's about 24 degrees. Let's go with that. So that's the split angle that I implemented here. I put on some vertical stagger here, and all along the way through these previous keyboards, I'm constantly adjusting my layout. I'm moving things around. I'm trying to figure out number pads. The number pad took the longest time. Trying to figure out, number pad took a long time. The symbols, the key symbols, took the longest time. But figuring those out along the way gave me opportunities to try to figure out, do I really need more keys? Do I need to move which keys I use to access these layers around? And one of the answers I came up with was pressing this key down, or this key, with this side of my knuckle here. So it was very easy to press. Just pressing it down here, and then that can activate a layer that I use over here. And likewise, this side can activate over here. So in building that, this is pretty much where I landed for a very long time. And I got a number of orders for kits and some for custom builds of these. And all the while I'm hand wiring all of this stuff because I didn't know how to make a circuit board. And I was constantly trying different builds and changing things up and doing weird designs like this one, just trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't and moving on. And this was where I landed for a very long time. And that's just a testament to how well it fit and how good it was, because usually I would just use a build until I got annoyed with it. I'm like, I can't stand this thing, I have to change this part of it. I have to change that. I have to move this around. I'm tired of the hinge. It's too tall. And that's what pushed me to make something new. So this was where I was. This is where I landed for a very long time. And this is where interest really kind of started to peak. People were very interested in getting something like this. It's still a standard 40%, it's 48 keys. But these thumb switches just made everything easier. Everything's much more intuitive, I think, because your thumbs just really rest on there. And I wasn't a fan of the Ergodocs or the other designs that had the thumb clusters like off over here, like positioned right over here in relation to your hand, because you wound up reaching, and it was slow and it was not comfortable. So there were a few things I wanted to change and a few things I wanted to implement, but I also just kind of wanted to try my hand at the circuit board design. Getting a proper circuit board would mean that I could make kits much more easily. I wouldn't have to hand wire everything, and it would just be more accessible to everyone, because not everyone can hand wire or wants to hand wire, and certainly I didn't want to. I was get a little tired of it. So here we go. Here is the Signum 3 circuit board. And you'll notice that there's really just way too many holes here. And that is because it supports 3 positions for each of the keys up here. So for all of these columns up here, you can set your key here, here, or here. Those are 3 of the exact same button. 3 switch holes for the same key switch. So you can adjust your column heights to match your finger lengths or shortness, in my case. I still keep the teensy in the middle. This first design was made specifically for the teensy. It does not have support for the Pro Micro because the I/O pins are in different positions for it. The next version will, but I really kind of prefer the teensy just for ease of programming. I still think the teensy loader is the best. This was pretty heavily influenced. There's more I want to do, but the influence was from this, strangely enough, this little pocket drum machine. It's called the Pocket Operator by Teenage Engineering. And it is, first of all, it's a fun toy. It's great to mess around with. But just the design on this thing is what really captivated me. This utilitarian, simplistic, It's just it's a PCB. I think it might have some kind of special coating on it. I know they used special ink that would survive the solder reflow process. But like these exposed, technically it's kind of an exposed pad, exposed footprint here that has a design on it. It's just cool. And I really liked it, and I really liked messing around with it, and I liked how light and easy and how, I don't know, I guess how technical it kind of looked. It looks like it's not finished. I like the way that looks. So this kind of borrowed from this. I wanted the circuit board to be a feature of the build, not a thing that, just kind of holds things in place and electronically and keeps things where they need to be. So I wanted to do more, and I started looking into what more I could do with this area right here, this thumb hole area. And I like my thumb hole, don't get me wrong, but when I put it on the desk and it sits there for 5 weeks, that thumb hole's just wasted real estate. I didn't really know what to do with it, so I think I do now. So I want to, first thing I want to do is change this so it supports a Pro Micro. I want to make these switch groupings a little bit more obvious on both sides of the boards, just so it's a little bit more easier to determine. That said, it is laid out such that if you put a key switch in one of these holes, you have to skip 2 spots to put it in the next hole. So you physically can't put one switch in, 2 holes that are wired to the same key switch. So it made that allowance. But I want more options in positions in the thumbs. So I want to be able to kind of angle these a little bit more. Technically, they are where they are, and you can adjust these up and down for your finger lengths individually. But I want a little bit more adjustability here. I also want to have a third optional button here, a key button on the inside here. And because I don't want to overcomplicate things or add another row or column, I still might wind up doing it. I kind of want to put some of these simple buttons in up here or something for things like the reset button or the boot button, stuff like that. I think that look pretty cool. But I want to be able to move some of these switches. So like these 2 switches, the bottoms of these outside rows, these are quite inaccessible to a standard 40%, and the only way I can reach it is by bending this ring finger all the way down and then pushing it with basically jamming my finger down into it. That's not very comfortable and not very ergonomic. So what I wanted to do is take one of those and duplicate the switch with a wire run down to here. So if you want, you can skip this bottom button here and wire your third thumb button here. And that way you'd have an extra thumb button. I've kind of gone back and forth on it with the design. I like the 2 thumb buttons, and when you add a third, especially when you reach out, it kind of feels weird to me. But if I make it optional and it doesn't complicate things anymore, I don't see why it's a problem. This also supports, remember how I said you hit that corner key with this edge of your hand, the blade of your hand. Even if you set up this column to be higher, you can still take that bottom switch, and you don't have to put it on this one up here. You can drop it all the way down here, just to make it a little bit easier to kind of palm. Speaking of palming, I was thinking about doing something like this, where this switch hole was down here, in case you wanted to push down with the palm of your hand, but I'm still working out the ergonomics there. Let me get the completed build here. I still have some of these circuit boards. They're not all sold yet. These are just the prototypes, so if you're interested, let me know. But I hope to have the next version up pretty soon. The design kind of has the exposed MCU, which isn't that great. I don't I don't really have much of a problem with people spilling, you know, Mountain Dew all over their keyboards, but if you did, it would be bad, so don't do that. But I did have plans for a case, something that would cover all of this and kind of protect it, but I'm going a different direction, I guess. I wanted something that would cover the MCU, but also have the ability to keep things very flat. I want this to be as low profile as possible, and you can see I've got a little bit of rubber matting on the bottom just to make it grippy to the surface that it's on. And I think that's going to be replaced with neoprene, like a mouse pad or something like that, very thin one. And that way it'll cover the bottom and protect the electronics. You know, you won't be shorting anything out on the bottom of the board. And you'll have a nice pad surface that evenly distributes the weight so that you can set this on top of your laptop keyboard and type away. Obviously the USB plug is meant to come in here, and there's actually 2 holes right here in the design. There you go. These gaps up here, they're made so that when the wire runs through here, you have the option of running a zip tie through or otherwise attaching that cable so that it's pinched in place. And if you want to permanently attach, which I recommend, you can just kind of wrap the cable around the whole case and have it be in a nice little package that you can carry around that'll have the cable attached. But a lot of people wind up doing a standard, you know, they have a detachable cable. So then you just plug it in when you're using it and unplug it when you're done. I mean, obviously. I had originally designed this so that the MCU would be able to be nested deep into the PCB, so that it would sink into and be on the same level as the PCB, or even below. So I would mount it on the bottom, and then the USB point would kind of poke up a little bit into here, and this would be an empty cut so that this area would be open, so the plug would nest almost at the same level of the PCB. I think I'm getting away from that at this point, because I like this idea of starting with the PCB as a base and then building up, rather than building a plate and then putting a PCB under that and then putting a bottom cover under that and then putting sides on it. I want it to be simple. I want the design, I want the function to follow the design. I want it to flow together, and I want it to be nice and compact and just cool, man. And I want it to be flat and nice and even. So I plan on building up from the PCB. So by waterproofing this with neoprene, by giving it feet, or basically one big foot pad, making everything nice and even and smooth and it won't slide around, I can build up from here and build this this kind of protective case that would sit on top of it and cover the MCU but still be transparent using acrylic or something like that. And this is something I'm working on. I have firmware issues minorly because I want to use Bluetooth, and the firmwares that are good, the QMK, the EasyAVR, the TMK, they can use Bluetooth, but they're just not optimized battery-wise for it. So I'm away from that right now. I would like to come back to it later, but I still want to be able to add features to this. And one of the things I was messing around with a while ago was this Arduino-based Pomodoro timer, basically, that would flash lights and buzz at you and let you push buttons to reset timers so that it keeps you on task, and makes me take a break when I need to take a break, because I generally don't. But building something like that into this and using an OLED display down here that's powered by the Arduino Nano that would probably rest over here, I think is a great possibility. Is that screen, you can use that for little silly animations. Again, kind of following the spirit of this, where it's just interesting stuff going on. I don't want to say screensaver, but kind of like that. But also to be able to run Pomodoros and set up timers, keep track of your work, and have a menu built into that OLED display. So I see that coming up. It'll be slightly separate from the firmware and everything, so that'll be its own system. It'll take power off of the plug, obviously, to run it here and power the OLED. But all of that's going to have to be protected, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be weird. And if you want to reprogram that Arduino, it's going to support that. It's going to have the connector on it, so you can plug in the side. It'll even be the same, the USB mini connector, mini connector. You plug it in the side, reprogram the Arduino, change your display. And I'm messing around with the possibility of having these keys trigger inputs on the Arduino, which I believe can be done by messing around with some of the LED or level activations, because it flips pins to high, and if we set these on the same system, then we should be able to set a pin here high and have it set another pin here high and read it, and then get that output on the OLED display without tweaking the firmware. So I think that'll be pretty cool. I'm definitely looking forward to messing around with that. But right now I'm just pretty excited about this board and putting it through its paces and just kind of wearing it out and figuring out what I would like to change, what I could get, what needs to be better or worse, changed, improved. I'm just really excited that it's coming together so well. So that'll be coming up. I hope this is interesting to you all, and let me know what designs you think are cool, what ideas you think are silly and I should abandon. Just let me know. Thanks.